Kellan dropped the burning paper cup of chai latte straight into the lap of the man beside her, and all she could think was this day could not get worse. "Oh my God," she gasped, leaping up from the train seat. "I am so sorry," the man flinched, then looked down at his soaked charcoal slacks. "Wow," he said, blinking. His voice was smooth, low, and surprisingly calm for someone who'd just been baptized in scalding cinnamon milk. "That's definitely one way to start a morning." Her cheeks went red. "I swear I didn't mean to. I tripped over my own bag and I wasn't looking, and it's okay," he cut in, lifting a hand. "I'm not made of paper, it's not that hot. I'll pay for dry cleaning," she blurted, "or a new suit, or something. I don't know what people do when they ruin strangers' mornings on the subway train," he corrected, smiling now. "We're on the Hudson Express, not the subway." Sierra blinked at him. Well, that explained the plush leather seats and why she'd had to use a gift card just to afford a one-way ticket. "Right, of course." The man grabbed a napkin from his briefcase and dabbed at his lap, clearly unbothered. His eyes flicked up to hers, dark brown, sharp but not cold. "You don't ride this often, do you?" "Nope, first time, job interview, Manhattan." She paused. "Well, I was supposed to be there in 30 minutes, he glanced at his watch. "You're not gonna make that." "Awesome," she muttered, sitting back down across from him because somehow she couldn't bear to sit beside him again. "That's just amazing." He studied her face for a second, then leaned forward. "What kind of job?" She hesitated. "Interior design internship." "Except I think I blew it already." "Well, you never know," he said. "Maybe this is one of those life throws you a curveball moments." "Yeah," she sighed. "Except it feels more like life threw hot tea into someone's lap." He laughed at that, actually laughed. It was deep and unexpected, and it made her glance at him properly for the first time. He was around 30, maybe a little older. Clean-shaven, dark hair neatly styled, wearing a navy coat over the now ruined slacks. He didn't look furious, he looked amused. "I'm Parker Hale," he said, offering his hand. Sierra blinked. "Seriously, I just ruined your pants and you're introducing yourself." "Formality helps when you're trying not to get mad," he said, grinning. "Come on, what's your name?" "Sierra Kellan." "Nice to meet you, Sierra." Despite the circumstances, she took his hand. His grip was warm and firm. They sat in silence for a beat. Outside the window, the city blurred past, all silver and steel and winter wind. "You still heading into the city?" he asked. "I guess. I don't really have a plan B." He tilted his head. "What if I gave you one?" She frowned. "What does that mean?" "I know someone who owns a design firm, small but high-end. They're always looking for sharp creatives." She narrowed her eyes. "You're saying this because you feel bad I destroyed your trousers?" "No," he said, dead serious now. "I'm saying it because I saw your portfolio sticking out of your tote earlier. You had hand-drawn layouts. That's rare these days." She looked down at her bag. "You were snooping," he shrugged. "I was bored. Then you threw tea at me. Now I'm not bored." Sierra stared at him. "Are you actually serious?" He pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. It was black with gold foil letters, HRC Capital Group. Parker Hale, managing partner. Her stomach dropped. "You're in finance, among other things," he said with a shrug. "Real estate, investments, startups, but my firm invests in design companies too, including this one." Sierra's fingers hesitated over the card. "So you're like, rich," he grinned. "I do okay." She squinted at him. "This isn't some weird sugar daddy thing, is it?" He burst out laughing again. "No, God, no, just a guy who got tea on his pants and happens to know people." Sierra bit her lip, weighing it. "And what, you just offer strangers help?" "I offer talented people chances," he said simply. "If you want it, I'll make the call. You can interview today. If not, I'll pretend I never met you." She stared at him for a long moment. "You really don't want me to pay for your pants?" He leaned back, eyes dancing. "Nah, I think this was the best part of my morning." Sierra flushed, the train slowed, Grand Central approaching. She looked at the card again, then slid it gently into her coat pocket. "Okay," she said quietly. "Make the call." He smiled. "Already did, while you were panicking." She gaped. "You're ridiculous." "I get that a lot." They stepped off the train. He offered to walk her to the building. She refused. He insisted, and somehow she let him. The firm was in a glass high rise. The receptionist greeted her like she already belonged there. Sierra glanced back at Parker as the elevator doors opened. "I don't know what kind of karma I earned to land next to you today," she said softly. He tilted his head, looking at her like he was trying to memorize her face. "Maybe it's not karma, maybe it's just timing." The doors closed. The interview was intense but good. She was offered a 3-month internship by the end of the day. When she stepped outside, Parker was waiting in a sleek black car, leaning against the passenger door with his coat collar flipped up. "You stayed," he pushed off the door. "Told you it'd go well. You didn't have to wait. I wanted to." She smiled, something warm blooming in her chest. "Thank you, really." He opened the car door for her. "Let me buy you dinner, not as a bribe, as a celebration." She hesitated. "You don't even know me." "Not yet," he said. "But I'd like to." She stared at him. Then she got in the car. The restaurant wasn't the kind of place that took walk-ins. It had no sign on the door, no hostess stand, and no menu posted in the window. Just a single valet in a tailored coat who opened the car door before it had even come to a full stop. Sierra stepped out, her boots clicking against marble tile before she could fully process where she was. Inside, the lighting was low and golden, with soft piano drifting through the air. Every table was spaced far apart, and none of the diners looked up from their wine glasses. The walls were lined with textured gold panels and black and white photographs framed in brushed brass. Even the air smelled expensive, like warm vanilla and something floral she couldn't name. Parker, a man in a velvet blazer, greeted them near the entrance. "Your usual table, please," Parker replied with a nod. "Right this way." Sierra leaned toward him as they followed the maitre d'. "Do you have a usual table in every restaurant, only the ones that don't serve food on paper plates?" "I'm in the wrong universe," she whispered under her breath. Their table was near a curved window that looked out over the city. The skyline glittered like someone had scattered diamonds across the horizon. The second they sat, a waiter appeared with a bottle of wine already uncorked. Parker didn't glance at the label. He just nodded once and the wine was poured. Sierra blinked. "Do you always get this kind of service?" "Only when someone else ruins my day and then saves it again before noon." She gave him a look. "That was not me saving your day, that was me panicking into a small miracle." He tilted his head. "Well, miracles are hard to come by." "I'll take one when I see it." The waiter returned with 2 plates of food before either of them had ordered. Sierra stared down at the plate: roasted duck over saffron risotto, garnished with edible flowers. "I didn't order this." "You wouldn't have known what to order," Parker said, unfolding his napkin. "This place doesn't have menus. The chef sends out what he wants you to eat." She raised an eyebrow. "That feels deeply unfair. It's also incredible." "Try it." She took one bite and her eyes widened. "Okay, maybe unfair isn't always bad." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, the quiet more comfortable than she expected. "So," she said finally, setting down her fork. "Why were you on that train this morning?" He glanced up from his plate. "Board meeting, Midtown, but I wanted time to think, and I hate being driven through traffic." "You think better at 60 miles an hour. I think better when no one's bothering me." A train car at 7 in the morning is usually the one place no one wants to make conversation. She winced. "Until I came along." "You were the exception," he said, "not the rule." She studied him. "You don't talk like a finance guy." "I'm not really one thing," he said, sipping his wine. "That's kind of the trick." "What does that mean?" He set the glass down. "I started in venture capital, but I got bored. I've built companies, sold them, helped others do the same. Now I mostly invest in people, projects, sometimes places." She leaned her elbows on the table. "That sounds vague and vaguely powerful," he smiled faintly. "It means I get to decide what matters." "That sounds even more powerful." "It's not about power, it's about control." She blinked. "That's not better," he laughed. "No, I guess it's not. But at least I'm honest about it." The pianist shifted into something slower and the lights dimmed even more. The restaurant began to clear out, one couple at a time. Sierra glanced at her watch, then frowned. "How is it already past 9? You lost time," Parker said. "That's a good sign." She shook her head. "I should get home. I have to fill out paperwork for the internship before tomorrow." He reached into his coat and pulled something out. It was a slim black envelope. He slid it across the table. What's this, your offer letter? She stared at it. How? I had them draft it the moment you walked into the interview, he said. They emailed me the final while you were upstairs. She narrowed her eyes. You really don't like waiting, do you? I don't see the point in it. She picked up the envelope but didn't open it. Why are you doing this? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached forward and tapped the table between them. When I was 24, someone gave me a shot I didn't deserve. He told me I looked like I had something to prove. And then he stepped back and let me prove it. She held his gaze. I think you've got something to prove too, he said. She swallowed. That's not the same thing. No, he agreed, but it's close enough. The waiter returned with a small plate, 2 perfect macarons, and a candle lit between them. I didn't tell them it was your birthday, Parker said. It's not. I know, I just wanted to see if you'd smile. She rolled her eyes, but her lips curled anyway. You're absurd and persistent. They stood, and he walked her to the car again. The air outside bit at her cheeks, but she barely noticed. When they reached her apartment, an aging brownstone walk-up tucked between a dry cleaner and a shuttered sandwich shop, Parker glanced up at the building with a slight frown. You live here alone? She gave him a pointed look. Yes. And I can take care of myself? I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? He shifted. I meant it looks like the kind of place where the radiator makes more noise than it gives heat. She laughed despite herself. That's probably the most accurate thing you've said all night. He opened the car door for her, even though she could have done it herself. She stepped out and turned to face him. Thanks for dinner, she said. You're welcome. And the internship. You earned that, she hesitated. Are you always like this? What, generous? No, unexpected. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and something shifted behind his eyes. I've never met anyone who made me want to be, he said. She stood still, heart thudding once hard. Then she turned and walked into her building without looking back, but she felt him watching her the whole way up the stairs. Sierra stepped into the design studio the next morning with a cautious kind of hope. The space was sleek and sunlit, with exposed brick and wide glass panes that let the downtown skyline pour in like a painting. A long marble table stretched across the middle of the room, cluttered with fabric swatches, architectural models, and glossy portfolios. The scent of fresh-cut eucalyptus from a vase by the entrance mingled with the faint hum of a distant espresso machine. A woman in her early 40s with sharply cut blonde hair glanced up from a tablet. You must be the intern, she said, not bothering to stand. Sierra, right? Yes. Hi, Sierra said, stepping forward. Thank you for having me. I'm Blythe, creative director. Parker forwarded your draft layouts. She tapped the screen. You have a good eye, but your use of space is messy. We'll fix that. Sierra blinked. Okay. Blythe stood and handed her a stack of folders. These are the current client boards, color palettes, concepts, timelines. Study them. We're presenting to the Larkstone Hotel Group Monday morning. That's in 3 days. Exactly. Welcome to high-end design. Sierra tucked the folders under her arm and nodded. She barely noticed the hour pass as she studied the renderings, marked notes, and reorganized the fabric samples. There was a rhythm to the chaos. It wasn't quiet, it was alive, focused. By midday, she had half the studio layout memorized and a list of questions forming in her mind. She didn't expect a familiar voice behind her. You're not lost yet. That's a good sign. She turned to find Parker standing in the doorway, dressed in a navy cashmere pullover and tailored slacks, hair still damp from the rain that had started outside. His presence shifted the air around him, casual yet completely in control. You just walk into every office you own, she asked. Only the ones where the lighting's this flattering, he said, glancing around. And I had a meeting nearby. Sierra crossed her arms. Right. Parker stepped closer. How's Blythe treating you? She told me I'm chaotic. She says that to everyone. It's her version of a compliment. Sierra gave him a skeptical look. He dropped his voice slightly. She hired me when I was 26 and still wearing suits 2 sizes too big. She sees potential before polish. Sierra glanced down at her wrinkled blouse. Good, because I haven't found the polish aisle yet. You will, he paused. You free tonight? She eyed him. Why? There's an architecture exhibit opening at the East Gallery. It's invitation only. I'm not exactly the gallery type. Then you'll balance out the people who are. I don't own anything that fits in a gallery. You will by the time I pick you up. Are you serious? He gave a mild shrug. If you say no, I'll invite someone else. She raised an eyebrow. You're not good at subtle. I'm not trying to be. That evening, Sierra stood in front of a boutique on the edge of Soho, staring at the window display. The mannequins were dressed in structured, elegant pieces that looked designed for women who never had to check a price tag. The door swung open before she touched it. Miss Kellan, a tall woman in all black asked, "We've been expecting you." Inside, the boutique was quiet and softly lit. A dress was waiting on a mannequin in the center of the room, deep burgundy silk, fitted at the waist with a high neckline and dramatic back. There were matching heels beside it and a slim clutch. Sierra stared. "Wait, what is this, mister?" "Hale requested the look be tailored to your measurements," the woman said. "The fitting room is ready." Half an hour later, she stepped out in the dress, still unsure if she was dreaming. Her reflection looked like someone else, someone powerful, poised, and entirely unfamiliar. A sleek black car pulled up outside the boutique just as she stepped out. The back door opened, and Parker sat inside, watching her with unreadable eyes. "You look like trouble," he said. "Is that a compliment?" "It is." The gallery was hushed and echoing, filled with towering sculptures of glass and stone. The crowd was older, dressed in sharp lines and muted colors. Parker kept a hand lightly at the small of her back as they moved through the space. It wasn't possessive, it was grounding. Like he knew she might float off if he didn't anchor her. An older couple approached them near a steel installation shaped like a collapsing building. "Parker," the woman said, leaning in to kiss his cheek, "you never age." "Who's this?" "This is Sierra Kellan," he said, turning to her. "A rising talent in design. She's joining the Larkstone project." Sierra blinked. I am, you will be," he murmured. The man offered his hand. "Malcolm Larkstone, good to meet you." Her fingers clasped his automatically. "You too." They moved on, and she turned to Parker. Why did you say that?" "Because I believe it. You can't just manufacture my career while I'm standing next to you like a decorative vase." "I'm not. I'm giving you the room to fill it yourself." Later, they stood by the balcony overlooking the city. Wind tugged her hair loose from its pins. Below, Manhattan sparkled like a circuit board. "You don't act like someone who's used to this," he said quietly. "I'm not. You're not intimidated either." "I don't have time to be," he looked down at her. "You're not afraid of me, are you?" Her gaze didn't flinch. "Should I be?" "No," he said, "but most people are." She looked back at the skyline. "Maybe they don't see the same version of you I do." He was quiet for a beat. "What do you see?" "You're still trying to figure that out yourself." He let out a breath, almost a laugh. "You see too much. You hide too much." He turned toward her fully. "I'm not hiding." "Then why does it feel like there are parts of you always off limits?" His jaw flexed, barely. "Because not everything deserves to be shared." "I'm not asking for everything," she said. "Just honesty." He studied her, the city lights flickering in his eyes. "I haven't wanted to let someone in for a long time." "Why now?" "Because you ruined my morning," he said, "and I haven't stopped thinking about you since." She didn't say anything. He leaned in. "Do you want me to stop?" "No." His hand brushed her cheek. "Then don't run from this." She stood still, heart hammering as his mouth met hers, slow, certain, and unrelentingly real. When he pulled back, his voice was low. "Tell me I'm not imagining this." "You're not." They didn't speak on the ride home. They didn't have to. But when she stepped out of the car, her phone buzzed in her clutch. A single email. Subject line: contract revision. She opened it and froze. The sender was from HRC Capital Legal, and the document attached was titled Acquisition Terms Larkstone Design Group. She read the first line. HRC Capital to assume full ownership of Larkstone Design Group, effective immediately. Sierra's blood ran cold. She looked back at the car, but it was already gone. Sierra didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the glow of the city filtering through her blinds, the words in that contract circling her brain like a noose tightening. Acquisition. Effective immediately. Larkstone. Parker by dawn. The sky was the color of ash and her eyes burned from lack of sleep. She got up anyway, dressed in silence, and took the train into the city without coffee, without makeup, without answers. She walked into the design studio and found Blythe already there, flipping through swatch books with the same brutal focus as always. Sierra stood across from her, holding the weight of that email like a stone in her throat. "You knew," Sierra said quietly. Blythe didn't look up. "I did. For how long?" "Since last week." Sierra felt her fingers curl into fists. "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" Blythe finally lifted her eyes. "It wasn't my place, and you still have a job if that's what you're worried about." "I'm not worried about my job. I'm worried about the fact that someone I trusted used me to get close to your portfolio." Blythe held her gaze steadily. "He didn't use you, he didn't have to." Sierra stepped back like she'd been slapped. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Blythe said, setting the book down, "that Parker Hale doesn't do anything halfway. If he wanted Larkstone, he could have bought it without ever stepping foot on that train." Sierra's stomach twisted. "Then why didn't he?" "Maybe you should ask him that." "I can't." Blythe raised an eyebrow. "Because you're afraid of what he'll say." "Because I'm afraid I already know." Blythe didn't respond. Instead, she reached into the drawer and pulled out a small white envelope. "He dropped this off an hour ago, said I wasn't allowed to open it." Sierra took the envelope with trembling fingers. There was no name, just her initials written in sharp ink. She hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper, no promises, just the truth. "Tonight." "Rooftop, 154 grand. She almost crumpled the note right then and there, but her fingers refused to let go. That night, the rooftop of 154 grand was silent but for the wind. The building was taller than most, with a wide terrace lined in glass. She stepped out and found him standing near the edge, hands in the pockets of a black coat, the wind tugging at his collar. He turned as she approached, his face unreadable. "You came," he said. "Don't let it go to your head." "I won't," he said. "I already have too much in there." She stopped a few feet away. "You bought the company?" "Yes. You didn't tell me." "No, you used me." "I didn't." He met her eyes. "I knew about the acquisition before I met you. That part's true. The deal had been in motion for months. But I paused it the night you had dinner with the Larkstones." "Why?" "Because I realized I didn't want to own something that might be tied to a lie." Her voice wavered. "Then why finish the deal at all?" "Because I saw what you could do. And I wanted to make sure you had the freedom to do it." She blinked. "That doesn't make sense." "You want the truth?" he asked, stepping closer. "I didn't care about the company. I cared about the people inside it, about you. About what you could become if someone gave you the space." "You didn't give me space, you gave me strings." "No," he said. "I cut them." He reached into his coat and pulled out a second envelope, thinner than the last, and handed it to her. She opened it slowly this time. Inside was a signed transfer of ownership document. "What is this?" "I'm pulling out. My stake's been sold back to the original partners, at a loss." "Why?" "Because you don't build something real on a foundation of suspicion." Her breath caught. "You lost millions." "I have more." She pressed a hand to her chest. "You did this for me?" "No," he said. "I did it because I couldn't stand the idea of you looking at me the way you did this morning. I did it because I've spent years chasing things that didn't matter. And then you spilled tea on me and made me realize what does." Her eyes filled before she could stop them. "I don't want to own your future, Sierra. I want to be part of it, if you let me." She looked at him for a long time. At the man who could buy entire buildings but gave up millions to earn back her trust. At the man who never once said, "I love you," but had just spoken it in every way that mattered. She stepped forward, the cold forgotten. "I don't need a rooftop or a dress or a private gallery," she said. "What do you need?" "You." His arms wrapped around her before the last syllable even landed, and when he kissed her this time, there was no hesitation, no questions, just one answer. Later, she stood with him at the edge of the terrace, her head against his chest, the city pulsing below like a heartbeat. "Was this your plan all along?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "This was better." She tilted her head to look up at him. "What happens now?" "Now," he said. "Now I take you somewhere warm, somewhere with bad Wi-Fi and no elevators," she laughed. "That sounds suspiciously like a vacation. It's a bribe. For what?" "For letting me fall in love with you." She reached up and touched his face. Too late. I already did. And somewhere far below, the city kept moving. But for them, time had finally stopped. The villa he took her to sat tucked into the cliffs of Ravello, hidden behind wrought iron gates and a cascade of bougainvillea. It wasn't enormous, not the kind of place that screamed wealth, it whispered it. Stone walls worn by sun and time, shuttered windows that opened to the sea, a terrace shaded by olive trees where the breeze carried the scent of salt and lemons. Sierra stepped out barefoot onto the mosaic tiles, her cotton dress clinging gently to her skin after the morning rain. Below, the Amalfi Coast stretched into the distance, a watercolor of misty cliffs and terracotta rooftops. "You didn't tell me it was this beautiful," she said, pulling her hair into a loose knot. Parker came up behind her, slipping a hand around her waist. "I didn't want to spoil the surprise." She turned slightly, watching him through narrowed eyes. "You're terrible at surprises. You buy me a dress, then tell me where we're going before I can even guess. This time, I didn't book the place until you fell asleep on the plane." Her brow lifted. "You made an international real estate decision between New York and Rome." He kissed the side of her neck. "I make better decisions when you're not looking." They spent the day without clocks. She wandered through lemon groves while he answered a few calls in the study. He cooked dinner that night, fresh pasta, clams, a bottle of white wine chilled in a silver bucket he refused to explain. As they sat beneath the stars, the sky violet and wide, she looked at him across the candlelit table. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "If I'd never spilled tea on you, would any of this have happened?" He considered the question, swirling the wine in his glass. Eventually, I would have noticed you, somewhere, somehow." He leaned forward. "Some things are inevitable." She traced a line in the condensation of her glass. "You used to plan everything, every step, every deal, every move." "I still do." "No, you don't," she said softly. "You didn't plan me." He reached across the table and took her hand. "No, I didn't, and thank God." In the weeks that followed, Sierra dove into the Larkstone redesign with fresh clarity. With Parker no longer involved financially, she had full freedom to lead the creative direction. Her concepts were bold, layered stone with velvet textures, brass fixtures softened by antique glass, spaces that felt lived in but luxurious. She worked with Blythe and the partners daily, presenting to the hotel owners with confidence that surprised even her. Parker, true to his word, never hovered. He came to Italy with her for a month, then returned to the States to finalize other deals. But he always called at night, sometimes just to hear her talk about fabric samples and tile inconsistencies. One afternoon, as she was adjusting light fixtures in the mock-up suite they'd built for Larkstone's top floor, Blythe walked in holding an envelope. "You were right," Blythe said, handing it over. "They chose your design for all the flagship rooms." Sierra stared down at the letter. "They did. You earned it. You turned that space into a story." Sierra exhaled, the tension she hadn't even realized she was holding draining from her shoulders. "I didn't think it would feel like this." "Like what?" "Like I belong here." Blythe studied her. "You do. You just needed someone to remind you." Sierra left the office early that evening, walking the cobbled streets until she found the tiny cafe Parker had taken her to on their first night in Ravello. The owner still remembered her order. She sat at the table overlooking the sea and pulled out her phone to call him. "I got the letter," she said when he answered. "I know," he said. "They called me earlier," she smiled. "You didn't tell me. I wanted you to find out on your own. You deserve to feel it all." There was a pause. "Come home," she said. "Are you sure it's time?" "I don't want to win this without you. I'll be on the next flight." That weekend, they returned to Manhattan. The city felt different now, less like something to conquer, more like something they could build a life inside. Parker's penthouse, once pristine and impersonal, now had signs of her everywhere. A pair of her sunglasses tossed on the counter, a sketch pinned to the fridge, a vase of sunflowers she insisted on replacing weekly. One evening, he walked into the living room to find her curled on the couch in one of his sweaters, flipping through a magazine. He sat beside her, pulled her legs into his lap, and watched her for a moment. "You're quiet," she said, setting the magazine down. "I've been thinking." Dangerous. He didn't smile. About what it took to get here, about you. She reached for his hand. Tell me. I've spent years chasing deals that didn't mean anything, saying yes to everything except what scared me. Then you came along and flipped the board. You make it sound like I disrupted your life. You did, he said, in the best way. She leaned in, her forehead against his. Then don't ever go back to safe. I'm not planning to. He took something from his pocket, a slim black velvet box. She froze. I was going to wait, he murmured, but I realized I don't want to. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, stunning, a single diamond set in a gold band with 2 tiny emeralds flanking it. I don't want a future where you're not part of everything I build, every day I wake up, every place I go. I don't want a version of my life where I'm waiting to be ready. I'm ready now. Her eyes filled, but she nodded before he could even ask. Yes, she whispered. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and she threw her arms around him, laughing through tears. Months later, they were married in Italy under the same olive trees that had shaded their first dinner. The ceremony was small, just friends, family, and the sea. Blythe gave a toast so dry it made everyone laugh. Parker's vows made Sierra cry twice. They spent their honeymoon in a quiet estate in Umbria where Sierra sketched future projects and Parker cooked breakfast every morning. There was no rush to return, no pressure to perform. Just the quiet certainty of having chosen each other. Back in New York, they renovated a brownstone in the West Village. It had creaky floors and stained glass windows and a rooftop garden where Sierra planted lavender and Parker installed a telescope. On the first night in their new home, she stood beside him on the rooftop, her head on his shoulder. Do you ever think about that morning? She asked softly. The train, she nodded. Every day, she turned to look at him. What if I hadn't spilled that tea? He kissed her temple. Then I would have found another reason to chase you. She smiled, quiet and full. You don't chase anymore. I don't have to, he said. I already caught you. And in the heart of a city that never slowed down, they stood still together, exactly where they were always meant to be.